It's big. It's bigger than average. Typically, I would say we probably average about 60 people, but this year it looks like we're at 73 as we speak today.
Welcome back to the Comstock channel. I'm Marlon Bowling with you. I am so excited to have you with us today. Always make sure you like these videos and make sure you subscribe to the videos. Just click on that little bell icon down below, and that way we can notify you when we post new updates. And make sure you share this video with others as well, especially today, because my very special guest is Dave Green. Now, he is the Executive Vice President of the Wheat Quality Council. He's based in Lenexa, Kansas, and my goodness, it's that time of year, Dave. Already, we're going to be kicking off the Wheat Quality Tour 2024. Grabbing a chance to talk with you before you hit the road here this Tuesday, and let's talk about the tour this year. I know last year you had all kinds of interest there. You had a high attendance. Are you going to have a big attendance again this year in 2024?
It's bigger than average. Typically, I would say we probably average about 60 people, but this year it looks like we're at 73 as we speak today. Last year we did 106, which was our all-time record. So there continues to be a lot of interest in the tour, which we really like, and a lot of new people every year. So the tour is on pretty good standing, I think, with the trade.
I think everybody really closely follows what you find. And I think this year is probably no different, where I imagine you're probably going to be finding quite a wide variety of results this year. Some areas of Kansas I heard are in not very bad shape, and others, again, like usual, are in dire straits right now for the crop. So let's talk about this. Explain, if you will, for our audience, where you go on day one.
So we make a loop through across Kansas and the surrounding states, and we will go the first day from Manhattan, Kansas. And again, we want to get a little bit out of Kansas City, out of the eastern area where there's not as much wheat farming, and get us out into Manhattan where the wheat actually starts to be grown. And we'll go on 6 different routes north and south of Manhattan on our way to Colby, Kansas, which is in the northwest. And then we follow the same 6 routes every year. And then the next day we'll go to Wichita, following 6 different routes down to Wichita. And then after our meetings and stuff on Wednesday, we'll have a final day where we'll go right up through the center part of the state, end up in Manhattan, and then have our final wrap up and present all of our data, and then give everybody a ride back to the airport to take off. So that's our loop that we make, a little counterclockwise loop.
Now, your routes are all color coded, correct?
Yeah, only because we had to call them something. And so years ago, when I was putting these routes together, I wanted to make them good wheat roads. So we tend not to go along along with railroad tracks, for example. We try to keep them out into the counties where there's more chances to be able to look at wheat. But I made them. I designed them by color to make sure that the longest routes, obviously, if you go up into Nebraska and go across to Colby, that's a very long day. Consequently, the second day going down into Oklahoma and back to Wichita is a very long day. So the way I was thinking when I made the routes was, let's give everybody one long day and one short day, and so that they're not too tired by all of this. And so that's the reason we colored them. And so the yellow route, for example, has a very short day the first day, but a horribly long day the second day. And that just makes it a little easier for the drivers to accept a route.
So, surrounding states, now I know you go through Nebraska. You also have results, I believe, where you meet up with people from Colorado and from Oklahoma. Are they doing their own tours kind of independent from this, and you guys compare notes? How does that work?
Now, Oklahoma does do a real tour where they get people out, and then they have a meeting at the end of the day. And I think this was just the other day, they had it a couple days ago, and they'll publish an estimate. They'll say, here's what we think the harvested acres are, and the yield per acre, and the size of the crop for Oklahoma. And then they'll drive up to our meeting in Wichita on it'd be Wednesday night, and they'll give an update on what they saw on their tour. The other states don't have actual tours, but they have people driving in from that work for the USDA, state statistician, the wheat commission. They'll drive in and stop at some fields, but they pretty much have a feel for the crop because they talk to their growers a lot. So we get these updates from Nebraska, Oklahoma, and Kansas, but I'm not responsible for them, and they don't really run the same tour that I do. But we feel it's helpful to give as much information as we can to people.
Now, I know that you have a bunch of what I would call rookies or newbies each time we have a tour. And why is it that we should put so much emphasis on the results from this tour if you have that many new people? I assume they go through quite a bit of training before they get on the tour, so they really know what they're looking for.
We do train, we do go out in some fields early, but uh, basically, there's no question about the tour relies on our veterans and what we would call our experts. And it's usually the drivers that are the people that have done this several times and that can handle a car, that know the wheat diseases, know the stages of development, know how to use our formula and such. So to your point, yes, there's no getting around it. This is a training tour. We're trying to get people who have no exposure to agriculture, who haven't been through this before, to get them out to see what wheat really looks like, how it builds yield, where that yield comes from, what's important, how the diseases are, the insects are. So it is very much a training deal. But years ago we decided, if we're going to stop at 650 wheat fields over the course of 3 days, why not try to do a good job? So that's when I started formalizing this to say, okay, if we're gonna, even though we're training and we're stopping every 10 miles to train people and to show them what the crop looks like, let's put some effort into keeping track of what we're showing. So we make a yield estimate on every field basis a formula that we got from USDA, and we use the same formula every year, and we run the same routes every year, and again stop it at 650 wheat fields with using the same formula and stuff. You get a pretty good feel for what's out there and where the good wheat is and where the bad wheat is. So I always say that the proof is in the data that we put out. And again, I can't say it enough how much this is a training exercise for getting people exposure to wheat, but we try to do a good job. And so we publish all of our data. We print it out every night, send it to all the news media. We go by our average guest for the tour. We put out, when publicize it, and then we've got our records in the books, in the data that we give each participant. They'll have the last 50 years of wheat data from the tour. What the May estimate was, what we guessed, what the final crop was, and so we print up all of our data and go that way. Having said all that, for some reason, our tour has been very close to either the direction the crop's going or confirming what the government has said, which is more likely. And we consequently have earned some credibility with the trade. So that's why we get a lot of people. That's why we get news coverage. All the news media is going to be there. And we get a lot of attendance from local farmers because over the years we've shown that this kind of works, that if you go to the right areas of the state, have the right people using the same formulas, that you get pretty close to what is actually going on in the crop. So I make no bones about, you're right, 75% of the people that are on this tour have no business making a crop estimate. But we do have 20 or 30 people that do know what they're doing, that are out there to show other people. And by the end of the trip, people have a pretty good idea of the difference between 60 bushels an acre and 30. So we've earned our credibility.
Well, this year there could be another wild card out there. I haven't heard much talk about it lately here, Dave, but about a month or so ago, you guys had a severe cold weather outbreak in Kansas. And it was really late. I mean, we were way beyond the joint stage. And I just wonder, what stage is the crop going to be when you guys go through the tour this week? And will any damage reveal itself on the tour? For example, if you have sterile heads or something like that.
They're out there. Yeah. To your point, though, the crop's heading now and starting to grain fill in the south. So we're going to see almost exclusively, maybe in the northwest part of the state, some of it is probably maybe not quite headed yet, but we're at a stage where, to your point, there is a reported freeze that we had in April, and there are reports of whiteheads that popped out. So it did do some damage to spots. We'll see that when we're out there. There's also the usual wheat streak mosaic viruses out there, and that always does some damage. The stripe rust is probably the biggest issue that I hear of, is concerned that it blew into the crop early. The crop is developing a little faster than normal, so it's this rust is taking hold a little bit. So we'll be anxious to see how that works out. But yeah, we'll see that frost damage, and there are some damaged heads for sure.
I would imagine you will see a wide variety of moisture conditions too throughout the state.
Yeah, if somebody wanted a headline, what I keep hearing from the people out there is, this should have been a really good crop. We had good planting conditions last fall. We had very good timely rainfall, warm weather. December had an all-time record for precipitation in December, so the crop came up fast, had a great stand. If anybody was worried about anything, it was that it was too tall and too lush going into the winter time. But everybody was very optimistic. Good soil moisture profile and a nice crop. And then the spring came, and of course, to your point, that's when the weather patterns changed, and now all of this lush crop that looked like it had potential to be very much a record kind of a yield has just slowly run out of gas, and it's just very unfortunate that we're going to see a lot of wheat in the what I'd call the western quarter, southwest quarter of Kansas, is the area that really seems to be struggling now. A lot of the areas along the north and in the east have had better rainfall, and those crops look very good, I hear. But I think we're going to see, to your point, some very, very good wheat in the northern areas and some really bad wheat again this year in the southwest, which has been kind of what's been happening the last 3 years.
Well, this, of course, will be measuring the hard red winter wheat. Um, there will be another tour, I know that I believe you're involved in that with the spring wheat up north, right?
We have the 2 tours a year. We go through the hard winter areas, and then we'll go through North Dakota. And again, we dip down into South Dakota. We dip into Minnesota. We have people from Montana drive over and give some updates. But again, the very same kind of an idea for, and the same size of crowds. We'll have 50, 60, 70 people run the same routes in North Dakota we do every year, and have another chance to get out and look at this. I keep telling everybody, when I'm a city kid, and when I started in agriculture, it was very much the exception that some city kid was involved in agriculture in the business, and for me it was the milling business. But over time, over my career, we're further removed from the farm. More and more of the ag jobs are being filled by non-ag kids, partly because there's not as many ag kids, but mostly because there's more ag jobs. There's a lot of stuff going on. So everybody's a little further removed from the farm as opposed to when I started in the business. So what we're finding is that there continues to be this demand for training, this demand for people to learn about the business that they're in. These are smart kids. They're going to be successful. You can tell by the way they handle themselves on these wheat tours and the way they talk. But they just never grew up on a wheat farm. So they don't know anything about it. Their mind is blank. This is an opportunity for them to go out, and walk the fields, hear the stories, how the plant grows, what's important, what's not important. We think of heading and spikes that you mentioned. We take those for granted as names, but there's an awful lot of people that need to learn that and see it for themselves. And this tour and the one in North Dakota have given an opportunity for us to train up the next generation of people who are another generation removed from the farm.
Well, I think a lot of the national media and the farmers, for that matter, are mainly focused on what the yield projections are going to be. But you kind of alluded to that where when you started this, you were looking at it from a miller's point of view. A lot of the tour participants are actually from the milling industry, and I think they just like to go on it as more of a fact-finding mission, right? They want to see
Oh
what
yeah,
kind of a quality crop they have to work with coming up.
exactly. And if you look at the history of the Wheat Quality Council tour, the Wheat Quality Council is devoted to improving the end use quality of the wheat that's grown in the United States. So we work with the plant breeders and the millers evaluate the new varieties that are coming out, and we bake them side by side with varieties that we like. And so we can kind of give feedback to the plant breeders as this is the right direction. We didn't like this one. We think it needs to be this, but we're trying to, knowing that the business is based on yield, we're trying to make sure that the options that are given to the farmers for yield will meet some minimum characteristics for quality. So the Wheat Quality Council is that's our mission is to do that. They used to have field days in the 60s when the price of wheat wasn't changing, nothing was going on. The Wheat Quality Council brought out the bakers with the millers to Kansas, and they'd take them out to the farm and show them the new combine, the new wheat varieties, and it was more of a field days kind of a atmosphere to it. But then when the Russians started buying grain in the 70s, all of a sudden things changed in the grain markets. The price was higher, it was volatile. Everybody wanted to know, when's this going to get harvested? What's the protein going to be? What are there disease problems? Is there anything? Where's the high protein going to be? Where's the low protein going to be? And so the wheat tour kind of took on a little different, a more seriousness over the years. So this tour has evolved into it's still a training thing for everybody. We say that 1,000 times, but we're also realizing that people are interested in information and the training that goes with it. But the millers, more than anybody, have taken advantage of this because the millers are obviously hiring people that are college educated that haven't come from a milling background. There's only a few family milling groups, so the millers recruit people. They see the value in this training, and so they continue to send people out. And I'm sure a third of the people on the tour will be flour milling companies.
Well, being in the media industry myself for multiple decades, let's leave it at that. I know a lot of information kind of comes leaking out of the tour in the form of social media updates, and everybody hangs on just about every little post that comes out, whether it's on Twitter, X, whatever. And it is very interesting because it does have a high degree of interest by everybody in the industry and the media. But when you gather all the data at the end of each and every day, that's when you make all the combined data public, right? So give me a
Yes.
time frame on when each day's results will be announced and then when you come up with the grand total.
So Tuesday night, we meet out at a very large farmer out in that area in the Northwest. And we have a meeting in his shop, and he gives tours, and we have dinner there. So that's when we go over the stuff publicly. What each car got for a result. Colby, Kansas is where we'll meet that first night. And so every car will give a summary. We'll enter all the data into a computer. So we'll have a weighted average of here's how many fields we stopped at on the blue route. Here's what that average was. Here for the 6 routes, here was their average, and now our overall average was this. So we'll present all that data. People could expect that then Tuesday night. You'll start seeing stuff official from us. Now, to your point, I can't keep people off of Twitter. They just there's a whole group of young people that are just all about it. It's worn me out, so I don't do Twitter anymore, and you won't see any posts from me. Um, I don't enjoy the banter and the complaints and the sarcasm and stuff like a lot of people do, but we will have I think it'll be week 2 or 24 will be the header that everybody will use, and you'll start seeing pictures and yields and estimates and observations from people during the tour. So yeah, there's a social presence for sure. I'm not so sure it's good, but it is out there.
Can't avoid it. But when do you do the grand total then? What day?
That would be Thursday. That's going to be Thursday about noon. That'll come out in Manhattan, and basically after me telling you all of the statistics and yield formulas and stuff we use, when we get to the end, we ask for everybody to make their own guess, because the crop's obviously going to get better or worse from what it looks like, and so what we find is that people want to give their own guess. So like, even though at the end of the tour our yield, let's say our yield's 35 bushels an acre, that we don't publicize that as anything but the average yield of the group was 35 bushels an acre. But when they put in their number, they can say, I think it's going to get better. I think we were too high. I think it's too low. So the number we publish is going to be the guess of all the people that were on the tour.
I know it's an incredibly difficult job to try and coordinate all this, and I know you do it each and every year, but my hat's off to you for making this a yearly event that everybody looks forward to. Again, what is the web address if somebody wants to find more information? And I will point out they can download the actual route maps too, right, from your website?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's all on our website is www.wheatqualitycouncil.org. And on the front page is the invite and the map of our routes that we'll be on, and there'll be the spring week tour information will come. But if anybody really wanted to surf that website, they could. It'll be very easy for them to look up past tour results, what our long-term guesses have been compared to the government. So all of that stuff will be on the website somewhere.
Will you put the data on there too then when you're done?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah. We put everything out there. It is what it is, we say. So.
Well, I know you're very busy, but thanks for taking time to talk with us and explaining the mechanics of how this all works. It's been great to talk with you again. That's Dave Green, Executive Vice President of the Wheat Quality Council, and I wish him luck in this year's Wheat Quality Tour 2024. That'll do it for this episode. For producer Brianne Hendrickson, I'm Marlon Boulding. We'll catch you next time on the Comstock Channel. Thanks for joining us on our Comstock YouTube channel. Don't forget you can also find us on Facebook and TikTok as well. Futures trading involves risk. The risk of loss in trading futures and/or options is substantial, and each investor and/or trader must consider whether this is a suitable investment. Past performance is not indicative of future results.